Hello, my friends, and welcome to the study. It's June. It's the summer solstice, and we've made it together to the 6th month of the year. And looking back through our study almanac, from January, the cold, dark month, February, waiting for spring, March, the 1st, blossoms coming, April, bluebells, and May, the height of spring. So together we've been through all of these months here in the study, and now we get to enjoy June. So relax and get ready for the study's June Almanac. In this month, the first calendar month of summer, when we have long days and happy dreams of the present day, the warmth and balmy breezes that mark the month of the summer solstice. In this lovely season, light has at last conquered darkness. We begin the calendar summer with long, lazy days, balmy weather, gentle breezes, and marvelous daydreams. Peace comes as life abounds in this smiling season, like slowly lapping waves of water at the beach. It is June. We have arrived at the summer solstice, which this year coincides with the lunar standstill, in a singular silent ballet in the celestial realm. We observed this peak of the lunar standstill in January, and we had the moon as our centerpiece in the almanac that month. This month, the moon makes a very quick appearance on the horizon before it sets in the night. The full moon this month being known as the strawberry moon. Solstice occurs at the 23.44 degree tilt of the Earth's axis towards the sun in the northern hemisphere at 0242 Greenwich Mean Time on the 21st of June, the day with the shortest night and the longest daylight, with the sun rising to its highest in the sky at local noon, Greenwich. Also in the sky is a fairy or magical phenomenon, only visible for about a month either side of the solstice, called noctilucent clouds, silvery wisps that appear to glow in the night sky. These clouds form unusually high up in the mesosphere, which exists between 50 and 85 kilometers above the Earth's surface. They are made of icy dust particles, They're called micrometeorites, and they are from volcanic eruptions and rocket launches. Floating around, the ice crystals that form on them in this layer of the atmosphere reaches its coldest in the summer months. We can see these wispy clouds glow because of the combination of their unusual height and the sun's proximity to the horizon after sunset, when we usually see in these latitudes of 44 degrees and further a glow in the sky many hours after the sun is actually set. So the sunlight illuminates these beautiful icy clouds in the mesosphere, and if we look to the western horizon about an hour after sunset, we can see these wispy, silvery, fairy glows. Of the planets, we see our old friends only a little bit. Venus will be very bright in the eastern sky just before dawn as the morning star. Reddish Mars will only be visible very low in the southwest shortly after sunset. Jupiter, our other old friend, will be in the southern sky late in the evening, and its 4 largest moons might be spotted with a telescope. However, we don't see these planets for very long in the summer sky, not until again in November. The stars, however, are something to behold if you're able to be up at the late and few hours of darkness. The stars called the summer triangle can be seen high up in the eastern sky. They are very bright, which means it will be a little bit easier to see them than our regular constellations in the light summer skies. This summer triangle includes the stars Deneb, Vega, and Altair. The faintest of these 3 stars is Deneb in the summer triangle, but that is only because it is 2.5 thousand light years away. However, in terms of absolute magnitude, Deneb is by far the brightest. Deneb means tail in Arabic, and indeed Deneb forms the tail of the constellation Cygnus, the swan. Now we can refer to our mythology. In Greek, Zeus had many instances where he would become an animal. One of his transformations was that of a swan to seduce Leda, the queen of Sparta. A Roman take on that myth was Phaethon. Cygnus represents Phaethon's lover. Phaethon, you remember, fell into a river and perished after having tried to drive the sun god's chariot. Cygnus was left in grief, or Phaethon's lover, and transformed into a swan and given this constellation. Another myth is that Cygnus agreed with Zeus that if Zeus transformed him into a swan, he would give up the rest of his human life. This enabled Cygnus, the swan, to retrieve Phaethon's bones from the river, and Phaethon received thereby a proper burial, allowing him to have his own constellation named Cygnus. Orpheus also was related to Cygnus, or the swan, having been transformed into this animal after his death, which is when swans are said to sing their most beautiful song. And he was placed in the heavens next to his lyre, which brings us to Lyra, the constellation representing Orpheus's instrument, with which, it was told, he could even enchant not only the dead, but inanimate objects, like stones, as we read in Ovid. Lyra is a small constellation made up of 5 main stars, of which Vega is the brightest and most easily visible. The third point of the summer triangle is the brightest star in the constellation Aquila, or Eagle, representing Zeus's attendant animal. This animal, Aquila, had the job of carrying and retrieving Zeus's lightning bolts, and is prominent in not only the mythology but symbolism throughout the Western world. The major lunar standstill means, of course, that the moon will only rise for a little bit, and it will be only visible at the lowest part, lowest near the horizon, which also means that it will appear larger. This standstill, which we talked about in January, only happens every 18.6 years, when the moon reaches the extremes of its orbit around the Earth, rising and setting at its most northerly and southerly positions on the horizon. We will not see another one until the year 2043. The light that the moon reflects when it is so close to the horizon passes through the thicker lower layers of the Earth's atmosphere, meaning that the shorter wavelengths of light, the blue light, scatter, while the longer wavelengths of light, the reds, oranges, are able to reach our eyes, making the moon appear pink and red and colorful just after sunset. The natural world that inspires and ignites our inner world and imagination is burgeoning with life in June. Many of the birds that gave us dawn chorus of spring, looking for mates and nesting, are now proud parents, some even for the second time, as the young fledglings begin to explore their new world. June also welcomes the arrival of more migratory birds in the UK, as well as the seabirds that spend most of their time at sea, coming into the land for the summer breeding season. The ledges and coastal cliff faces are full of guillemots and razorbills, with eggs perching in their nests precariously on the sides of these cliffs. Puffins can be seen on the grassy edges and rocky outcrops, laying their eggs in old rabbit burrows or little chambers that they've excavated for the purpose. Gannets out on the waves use their binocular vision from a height of 30 meters to pick out fish swimming in the shoals. The skies are filled with herring gulls and breeding avocets line the shores and wetlands. Also that can be seen are many butterflies and dragonflies. Butterfly conservation in the UK shows that 80% of butterfly species have become scarcer or decreased in range in the last 50 years. However, a handful of species have not had such a decline, including some of them that have been helped by the warming climate and others due to conservation. One of these lucky ones is the large blue. This butterfly with brilliant blue wings and white tips had been declared extinct in Britain 40 years ago. However, it has managed to re-emerge in the southwest of England and further afield, as it has had some reintroduction programs and carefully managed butterfly sites. So that's good news for conservation of our wildlife. Buzzards are birds that eat these insects that are flying around, and we can witness their beautiful displays, but also sparrowhawks that are a beautiful bird of prey, have a breeding season quite late, and their chicks will be hatching now in June, as the woods and the hedgerows are full of all of these little songbirds recently fledged, like finches and blue tits, that make easy dinners for these birds of prey. Out in the seas again we see bottlenose dolphins, much more visibly in June, because the seas are calmer. Sometimes we'll see the calf swimming at the side of their mother. Chalk grasslands are the most floriferous habitats in Britain and Ireland, and they are at their most glorious this month. It is said that there can be as many as 3 dozen kinds of wildflower and grass in a single square meter of this nutrient-poor soil, which in turn attracts a great diversity of life. Orchids abound, including the pink pyramidal orchid that we'll put on our disc this month. It is very bright and colorful and has distinctly cone-shaped flower spikes. These pyramidal orchids thrive in these limestone areas, and masses of these beautiful things can be seen carpeting nature reserves and downland. Coastal cliffs now are blushing with the glow of the sea thrift or sea pink, which we'll also put on our disc. This little hardy salt-tolerant plant can cling to all the rocks and cliffs and the tiniest ledges, and its little baby pink flowers glide in the breeze. It flourishes in salt marshes and even environments that are too harsh for any other flower. Another cute little animal that is breeding this month is the water shrew, often called Britain's most mysterious mammal. June is said to be when the female water shrew gives birth, though the species' exceptional shyness and preference for well-vegetated ponds and ditches means that very few are actually often sighted. Another flower we'll include on our June disc is this big, bold, stately spire of the foxglove. This beautiful native flower of Britain is found in gardens and wild woodlands everywhere. It will be in bloom from June well into September, loves heaths and woodlands, and rapidly colonizes clearings where trees have fallen, and is one of the few wildflowers that thrive amidst dense jungles of bracken. They can look like many colorful swords sticking up out of the undergrowth. Foxgloves are pollinated mainly by long-tongued bumblebees, such as the common carder bee and the garden bumblebee. Light summer evenings can also be perfect for watching badgers, who usually come out in the dark. And these very short nights mean that we might catch a glimpse of these busy nighttime animals. The badger cubs, as you remember, we mentioned, were mostly born in February or March underground, so now they'll be 3 to 4 months old. And you might see them outside playing with each other in the summer night. In this month of the pink strawberry moon in lunar standstill, we look at the tale of Orlando Furioso, or the frenzy of Orlando Roland, from the French tale of the Song of Roland, the Chanson de Roland. And we'll be putting him and his beautiful hippogriff that I'm trying to make here on the disc. Orlando Furioso takes its form as an Italian epic written by Ludovico Ariosto, and it is a very long, convoluted, wonderful piece of epic romance that has been very popular ever since its earliest version appeared in 1516, and is a continuation of Boiardo's unfinished romance, Orlando Innamorato, or Orlando in Love, from 1495. Although Ariosto's would not be complete in publication until about 1532. These, of course, revolve around the main character of the Chanson de Roland, the Song of Roland from the 11th century, about Charlemagne's knight Roland, who guarded the van in the back in the Basque country. So we have a lot about knights and chivalry, romance, and all kinds of fantastical things, as well as the paladins of Charlemagne fight the Saracens and their incursion into what would become France. So all of this tradition of Roland or Orlando was widely circulated and highly popular well into the 17th century and took on many guises. Survives today in all kinds of stories, including even an anime, and Vivaldi's wonderful opera Orlando Furioso, which I was privileged enough to see in Venice with a fantastic performance by the Fenice Opera. But also we have Handel and many artistic representations and other stories. So very popular character and story, very convoluted plot. Orlando, the Christian knight, along with his friends, the paladins, and of course some Saracen characters, go on several adventures because he becomes enamored of or completely besotted with the Saracen princess Angelica, and this drives him mad, hence the Furioso. There are sorcerers, fantastical creatures, a gigantic sea monster, and of course his loyal flying dragon horse, Hippogriff. There are all kinds of episodes where different mini-adventures happen. There's the Christian warrior Bradamante and the Saracen warrior Ruggiero. And also there's Astolfo and a number of other characters that come and go. So it's quite a trip to read this. I've considered doing it in the study several times, but it's very challenging because of its length, but also how complex the plot becomes. But I think it might be worth a look at some point for an entire video. This poem is divided into 46 cantos, containing each variable number of 8-line stanzas in ottava rima, which had also been used in Orlando Innamorato. Ariosto's work is 38,736 lines long in total, making it one of the longest poems of European literature. And I'll just read for you a bit from the part. This will be from Canto 34. So this one has Astolfo, Alcestis, and Lydia in it, and there is a part where Astolfo is going up to the mountain summit, and he finds St. John, Enoch, and Elijah. I told you it's fantastical. And they take care of Orlando's beautiful hippogriff, and Orlando goes to the moon. After which he reaches this vale where all things lost from earth go. It's a beautiful passage there about all of the interesting things he finds there that have been lost from the earth. Astolfo there finds Orlando's store of sense, and then we have the Palace of the Fates. So just a bit here where Astolfo journeys to the moon. 4 horses redder than flame the saint led to the chariot, and then prepared to fly, for once he and Astolfo were seated, he took the reins and sped towards the sky, rising in wide circles oft repeated, till they had reached the realm of fire, thereby its heat miraculously suspended by the evangelist whilst they ascended. So it's Astolfo and Elijah. So through all that fiery region they passed, soaring swiftly to the moon's sphere above, which they saw when they had reached it at last, like to unblemished steel did mostly prove, and found the size of what was there amassed, or the half that they could see at that remove, much the same as distant earth's to the eye, comprising our seas and the part that's dry. For the knight was doubly surprised to see its surface was so large viewed close at hand, which seemed a little orb when seen fully from the enormous earth on which we stand, while forced to strain his eyes to view clearly how earth's distant oceans embraced the land, that from the arc, subtended by its light, appeared quite small at that wondrous height. There other rivers, lakes, and countryside are seen than those which we view here below. Other valleys, plains, and mountains are descried, whose cities, towns, and castles there on show, with houses of such splendor that, beside their majesty, our own seem base and low. Broad, solitary woods also feature, where nymphs pursue every kind of creature. And then Astolfo finds Orlando's sanity in the vale where all things lost from earth go. But that is a very long story for another day. And here we have just this little bit of Orlando on our disc. Orlando on his hippogriff. Thinking about the big, giant moon of June. A good place to visit in our June Almanac, because of the solstice, are the stone circles of England, which draw enormous crowds at these solstices. Today we're going to look at the Avebury stone circle, a henge that dates from around 4,600 years ago. The bank and ditch are almost a mile in circumference, and the ditch was originally around 9 meters deep. The banks built up from chalk, dug from the ditch using stone and bone tools, and would have been bright white when first they were dug. The outer stone circle is the largest prehistoric circle of standing stones in the world, and there are remains of 2 other smaller stone circles within it. The stones are huge, with the largest weighing at least 100 tons, making it the heaviest in Britain. These stones are locally sourced hard grey sandstone, known as sarsen. Constructed over several hundred years in the 3rd millennium BC, during the Neolithic or New Stone Age, Avebury Stone Circle comprises this circular henge, as well as the smaller stone circles, and 4 causewayed entrances. A double avenue of stones leads away from the southern entrance towards the sanctuary stone circles on Overton Hill, about a mile to the southeast. Its original purpose is unknown, although archaeologists believe that it was most likely used for some form of ritual or ceremony, or possibly stargazing or keeping time with the lunar standstills and summer solstice. This Avebury monument in Somerset is part of a larger prehistoric landscape which contains several older monuments nearby, including the West Kennet Long Barrow, Windmill Hill, and Silbury Hill. By the Iron Age, Avebury had been effectively abandoned, with some evidence of human activity on the site during the Roman period. During the early Middle Ages, however, a village first began to be built around the monument, eventually extending into it. The massive bank and ditch enclose an area of 28.5 acres. The shape formed by the ditch is subcircular and is divided by causewayed entrances into 4 unequal arcs. The bank was once nearly 55 feet above what was originally a 30-foot deep ditch. The stark white chalk must have been a spectacular sight in the countryside. It is as irregular as the ditch in shape and appears to have been built by different working gangs or groups. Where the bank ended at an entrance, timber revetments appear to have been used to keep the bank in place. The surfaces of the 4 causewayed entrances were reduced by scraping the top layer of chalk so that the banks each side appeared even higher and more impressive. There may also have been timber entrances of some kind to restrict access to the circles for only a few people at a time. Together with the stones, the great henge at Avebury took many hundreds of thousands of hours to complete, and was one of the most labor-intensive Neolithic monuments in Britain, along with Stonehenge and Silbury Hill. And there is our disc for the Study Almanac for June 2025. I hope you've enjoyed this time with me in the study, and that it has given you some peace and calm as we drift our way happily into this first month of summer with daydreams and balmy breezes. So for these lazy days, be good to yourself, my friend. Be kind to others. And, as always, be extraordinary.